What is going on, my fellow Jets fans? And for the final time this season, and let's be real, this does not mean much, but I'm going to say it anyway. Happy Victory Monday, and welcome to the latest episode of the New York Jets State of Mind podcast, coming at you as I love to do once a week at the bare minimum. My name is Malcolm Harper, aka MHJetsFan83. You can follow me on X, Instagram, and YouTube at MHJetsFan83, which is one word, all lowercase. You can find my podcast on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. This episode will also be posted on my YouTube channel at MHJetsFan83. Before I get to my thoughts on yesterday's season finale game against the Miami Dolphins and talk a little bit about what should be an interesting offseason with so much uncertainty, if y'all could do me a huge favor and share this podcast and my social media accounts with other Jets fans, that would be greatly appreciated. Also hit the like, subscribe, and so all my followers out there that are following me on Spotify, please leave a comment. I am also open to feedback as well, too. You guys are also the part of this journey with me as well. Now, with that said, let's get to yesterday's season finale at MetLife Stadium against the Miami Dolphins. Now, the lost season is officially over. The Jets win the game 32-20 and end the season with a 5-12 record. And with that win, the Jets are officially have the 7th overall pick in the 2025 NFL draft. Let's start with the quarterback, Aaron Rodgers. Let's talk about the very first play of the Jets' possession. Aaron Rodgers tries to throw the ball to Devontae Adams, and what happens? The ball gets tipped to interception. I'm like, oh no, here we go again. And the trick play that they tried to do was an epic fail as well, too. I got to call that for what it is as well. He throws for a season high 4 touchdowns, including his 500th career touchdown pass to Tyler Conklin. He also threw his 501st, 502nd, and 503rd career touchdowns. He became the 5th player in the history of the NFL to join Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Peyton Manning, and former teammate Brett Favre as the only players in the history of the NFL to throw at least 500 touchdowns in the history of the NFL. No game stats for Aaron Rodgers. He was 23 for 36 for 274 yards and 4 touchdowns with 1 pick. Devontae Adams, 6 catches for 88 yards and a touchdown. Brees Hall had 12 carries for 57 yards. He also had 3 catches for 15 yards and a receiving touchdown. Allen Lazard, 3 catches for 71 yards and a touchdown. Tyler Conklin, 2 catches with 11 yards and that 1 touchdown that I mentioned earlier that Aaron Rodgers ended up recording his 500 career touchdown pass. Garrett Wilson with 4 catches and 51 yards. The defense won the takeaway battle 4-1, plus 3 in takeaways. 2 interceptions from Ashton Davis. Quincy Williams and Solomon Thomas both had a fumble recovery. And here are the final season stats. Aaron Rodgers, 63.1% completion for 3,987 passing yards and 28 touchdowns with 11 picks. His passing yards and touchdowns are both ranked 3rd in team history behind Joe Namath with 4,007 passing yards and Ryan Fitzpatrick with 3,905 yards. Ryan Fitzpatrick has the all-time touchdown record with 31, followed by Vinny Testaverde with 29. Garrett Wilson, his final stats were 101 receptions for 1,104 yards and 7 touchdowns. He became the first receiver since Brandon Marshall back in 2015 with over 100 catches in a season. Devontae Adams, in the 10 games that he was with the Jets, had 67 catches for 853 yards and 8 touchdowns. He did eclipse the 1,000-yard mark again this season. Brees Hall, 1,659 yards from scrimmage, 876 yards rushing, 483 yards passing, and 8 total touchdowns, 5 rushing, 3 receiving. Will McDonald had 10.5 sacks. And let's get to Aaron Rodgers' press conference after the game. When asked about if you're going to be back as the Jets starting quarterback or continue playing for a 21st season in 2025, if it's not playing for the Jets, his response was, quote, "Well, I don't know. I honestly don't know." And he also added, "I'm looking forward to those conversations," Rodgers says. It feels good to be able to do some of the things that he did the last 5 or 6 weeks. I know I'm capable of doing, even at 40 and 41 years old. But either way, I won't be upset or offended with what they decide to do. If they want me to move on, if I still want to play, and Woody Johnson basically addressed the future of Aaron Rodgers briefly when he stopped outside the locker room to summarize the season, quote, Everybody thought this season was going to be unbelievable. So from that standpoint, yeah, we didn't live up to that early option of virtually everybody, John said. But we ended up well because I don't care about anything else but a win at the end was good. Come on. And I'm saying to myself, Woody Johnson, did you really just say that? Come on now. We're in the same old Jets culture yet again. Another thing that really did piss me off about this season was the fact that some Jets fans saying that this is all Aaron Rodgers' fault. And I'm gonna have to slightly disagree respectfully because of the fact that they showed a stat that during the game, during the Dolphins game, the Jets were 2-5 when leading after the third quarter, and it was tied for the worst record in NFL history prior to the win. And the last time I checked, Aaron Rodgers does not play defense. There were games where he did put Jets in the position to win games. You could blame the defense for not keeping the leads, in my opinion. Also, the special teams was terrible as well, too. They lost at least 3 games for us. Greg Zerline was terrible. Carlson was terrible. And I previously said in my previous episodes of my podcast, I have mixed feelings about bringing Aaron Rodgers back. I'll leave that up to the new regime to decide whether he comes back or not. Now let's get to the GM and the head coach search. And wow, there's a lot of candidates for the GM position. Here are the list of candidates in no particular order. So the Jets have requested interviews with Buccaneers assistant Mike Greenberg, Vikings senior vice president of player personnel Ryan Gosselin, Rams senior personal executive Ray Farmer, Chiefs assistant general manager Mike Gonzi. I think I'm saying that right. They have a scheduled interview with Eagles assistant general manager Alec Halaby. They've already completed their interviews with ESPN analyst Louis Riddick, Senior Bowl director Jim Nagy, ex-GM of the Tennessee Titans John Robinson, and Falcons ex-GM Thomas Dimitroff. Now, as far as the head coaching candidates, I have the list in my notes with the list of head coaching candidates. So the Jets have requested interviews to interview Vikings defensive coordinator Brian Flores and OC Josh McCown. Chiefs Matt Nagy, 49ers quarterback coach Brian Griese, Broncos defensive coordinator Vance Joseph, Bills offensive coordinator Joe Brady, Lions defensive coordinator Aaron Glenn, Steelers offensive coordinator Arthur Smith, Texans offensive coordinator Brian Slowik, ex-Jets head coach Rex Ryan, which he's going to be interviewing for the job tomorrow, by the way. They've already completed interviews with ex-Commanders head coach Ron Rivera and Mike Vrabel. And let me get to Mike Vrabel for just a second. And I really feel bad for Gerard Mayo getting fired by the Patriots. And you know that Robert Kraft hates the Jets with a passion. Let's call that for what it is. And if this report that is out saying that indeed Mike Vrabel basically used the Jets as leverage to pressure the Patriots to fire Mayo after the interview with the Jets ended up going well, that he never wanted to coach the Jets in the first place, in my personal opinion. And my gut feeling is that if that ends up happening and Mike Vrabel ends up becoming the head coach of the New England Patriots, that means that Robert Kraft and Vrabel will stick it up to the Jets yet again. So I don't know what it is with Robert Kraft disliking the disliking the Jets. So you know what? It is what it is. Like I said, if Vrabel doesn't become the head coach, give me Brian Flores. And he's a New York guy from Brooklyn. He wants to coach again. And if he does ends up becoming the Jets head coach, there was nothing be more satisfying for him if he could stick it to the Pack and the Dolphins rear end. And my third choice for head coach is Aaron Glenn. Now, if Aaron Glenn ends up becoming the head coach of the Jets, he's not going to tolerate the crap that happened when Robert Saleh was the head coach. He's going to hold players accountable. He was drafted by the Jets in 1994 with the 12th overall pick. He knows the New York City market. He was mentored by Bill Parcells and Sean Payton. He could adjust on the fly. His defenses have been good. He's not going to be stubborn and set in his own way thinking this is my system and he doesn't adapt. I don't want any more first-time head coaches anymore. It does not work in New York City. These first-time head coaches, they'll be in and over their heads and don't even know how to handle adversity, especially coaching in New York, because you got to have thick skin to actually go and coach the New York Jets. And hopefully by the time the Super Bowl runs around, the Jets will have their new head coach and general manager in place. I am cautiously optimistic this go around, but I have said in the past, I have no confidence that Woody Johnson is going to get it right. So, did y'all see the article, this exclusive article from Brian Costello, who covers the Jets for New York Post, about Woody Johnson, about not regretting firing Robert Saleh and Joe Douglas? And in my mind, after reading that article, it's like, what is he thinking? And my thing is, Woody Johnson, you better get these hires right. How much time do you got left being an owner? You're 77 years old. 14 straight years of not making the playoffs is an absolute disgrace. And the national media will always have a field day with it until the Jets make the playoffs. The Broncos ended up making the playoffs after having the second longest active streak of not making the playoffs with 8. Let that sink in, Woody Johnson. Think about that. And I'm telling other fans of football teams, especially living here in Northern California, where a lot of my friends are San Francisco 49ers fans. And I'll be like, quote, if this makes you feel any better, my team has not made the playoffs in the last 14 years, which is the longest active streak in playoff drought in North American sports. And at least you made the Super Bowl and lost in the Super Bowl. You got in the playoffs and lost in the Super Bowl. So I clearly do not want to hear it about not making the playoffs this year. So with all that being said, let's get to the 2025 opponents. The Jets will have an extra home game this season. The Jets will be playing the AFC North and the NFC South. The Jets' home games will be against the Buffalo Bills, the New England Patriots, the Miami Dolphins, the Pittsburgh Steelers, the Cleveland Browns, the Denver Broncos, the Dallas Cowboys, the Atlanta Falcons, and the Carolina Panthers. The Jets' away games are against the Buffalo Bills, the Miami Dolphins, the New England Patriots, the Baltimore Ravens, the Cincinnati Bengals, Jacksonville Jaguars, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and the New Orleans Saints. And we all know the full schedule won't be coming out until the beginning of May. So we got to go and wait till the springtime after the draft in order to see the Jets 2025 schedule. Now, let's switch over to other Jets news. The Jets have signed 10 players to reserve and future contracts, and they are offensive lineman Zach Bailey, running back Zach Evans, tight end Obina Izzy, tight end Zach Kuntz, guard Cole Laveo, quarterback Adrian Martinez, linebacker Jackson Sermon, wide receiver Brandon Smith, defensive back Trey Swillen, and wide receiver Ezra Winston. Sauce Gardner is eligible for an extension this offseason, and he wants to be part of the change in the organization. And for me personally, if we're going to start giving extensions, I want him and Garrett Wilson to be the first two Jets to get extensions this offseason. That's just me. So, with all that being said, before I get on out of here, let me get to my favorite part of the podcast. And you guys know what it is. It's new follower shout outs. And as I always said, I am a man of the people on this podcast. So each new follower that follows me on X, Instagram, and YouTube, you will get a shout out from me. So with that being said, I want to give a shout out to a brand new follower on Instagram, Nick804. Thank you, bro, for following me. I really appreciate it. So as I'm recording this podcast on a Monday evening, no new followers on X and YouTube. So with that being said, I'm signing off. I cannot thank you guys enough for supporting me on this podcast. If you're listening to this podcast for the first time, please do me a favor, wherever you're listening at or wherever device you're listening on. Please go to X, Instagram, and or YouTube and go to the search box and type in my name and Mates Jets Fan 83, which is one word, all lowercase. Once this is over with, I'll be posting this episode on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. I will be posting this video version of my podcast on YouTube, on my YouTube page as well. Jets fans, get ready for a wild off season. We're all going to witness every single move the Jets will be making through social media. Even though the season's officially over, the 2024 season's officially over for the Jets, this podcast will still be going on throughout the entire offseason. This will still be a weekly show, so I will be back next week to recap the latest Jets news. If there's any major Jets breaking news, I will be recording a reaction episode as needed. So until then, JETS, Jets. You guys take care.